Because there's a big difference between you praying and asking God for, asking God to send you a spouse that meets your list of the things that you want. And there's a difference between that and God sending you and you being ready for the spouse that you need.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to our channel. My name is Tim. This is my beautiful wife, Pauline, and you're tuning in to another episode of the W Podcast, where you get wisdom in the word with the
Wheeler.
Hey, so we are so excited because we have another amazing topic. If you saw the title, then you know we're talking about how we would, in 2025, go from being single to hopefully engaged and married. And let's just be honest from the top. The truth is, anyone can get a date these days. You can go on a dating app right now and get a date. You could go just walk up to somebody and ask them on a date, and if you look good enough, maybe they will consider it. But that's not your problem. The problem is, as easy as it is to get a date now in 2025, it seems to be even harder to actually be able to find somebody you want to marry. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to get a date, but it's harder to get married. Somebody say the math is not mathing. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. But we think that there actually is a reason for it. Honestly, there's several reasons why it's easier to date instead of getting married nowadays. But one of the main reasons, I believe, is because in the dating space, there's a lack of humility. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, people are getting married later and later compared to 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago for both men and women. It's a pretty interesting thing to think about of, like, why is that? Do people still want to get married in 2025? Is that a priority in the church, outside of the church? What are the reasons for that? Why is it so hard? Why is the divorce rate so high? All these different stats and data points that everybody sees. And I think that it's something that's worth talking about, because I think marriage is a natural desire that the Lord puts in many people's hearts, and it's something that's a kind of a cornerstone of society, is marriages and families. So if we're not getting married, if it's hard to get married, to find a spouse, like, why is that? Another question you might be asking yourself if you're single in 2025 is, why am I still single? I'm a good catch. Like, I have this going for me. I have that going for me. I don't have a criminal record. Like,
criminal record.
Yeah,
crazy.
All these different things. Or maybe you do, but
the Lord redeemed.
Yeah, just like, is there
all things work together?
Is there a formula for getting married? Like, why are there certain people? I know a handful of people who you're like, they got married and I'm not married yet. Like, what is wrong with me? You maybe grew up with them, went to college with them, and that, you're maybe questioning, like, Lord, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah, and I want to say, before we start going further into this video, speaking of humility, we're going to be humble and say, we're not saying that this is the answer. This is the only reason why everybody is still single. No way, shape, or form. Right. This is honestly, and we've said this over the 4 years that we've done this podcast, the whole goal is to offer you a perspective for you to think about and say, okay, well, maybe this is a different way to consider in my love life. And we have to be honest. There is no one size fits all when it comes to God's will for people's lives and people's love lives in general. There's people, like Pauline said, who've done terrible jobs and somehow they're in relationships. And there's some people who maybe they even already done what we're about to share in this video, or maybe they have done everything else that appears to be the right thing to do, and they're still not in a relationship. And that just is what it is for whatever reason. But we do think there is consistency in people who are in successful marriages that follow some of the things that we're going to share in today's videos. Because in an era where we pop balloons and say someone isn't a good fit because they say the wrong words, or they got the wrong hobbies, or they're wearing a bad outfit, it's hard to be like, yeah, we can do that. And then also there's a humble spirit in the dating culture. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I remember when we first started dating. I don't know if you remember.
I do.
It wasn't that long ago.
Almost 10 years ago.
Yo, that's crazy. 2015, we first started. We went on our first date in 2015. Now, it was November,
yeah,
so we still got a little bit. We still got a little ways, but that's pretty cool. But I remember I was desperately wanting to have some godly information, because
Me too.
If you remember 10 years ago, nothing was as big as it is now. So YouTube,
Nothing.
YouTube was around. People were on YouTube,
Obviously.
but it didn't seem like there was all these influencers on YouTube. There
Yeah,
was
there
no
was
popping
already
balloon
pretty-
videos that I knew of.
There's definitely no like relationship entertainment stuff on
Yeah, there was no,
Jubilee.
Instagram wasn't what it
Social
is today. TikTok didn't even exist. So it just was a different landscape. And we were so desperate because there was a lot of books on marriage. There was a lot of books for singles, but we didn't feel like there was a lot of content around, how do you just date?
Yeah.
And I think
But
that hunger to get that information actually served us well, because if you're humble enough, or let me say it this way, we were humble enough to know that we didn't know everything.
right.
We were humble enough to know that we needed help. And I really believe that helped us individually and then together, because your boundaries are different when you're humble. Mm-hmm. You seek accountability different when you're humble, and you consider, this point is big, your dating options differently when you're humble. Now, we've been saying the word humble a lot. I'm not going to just assume that everybody knows what it means.
Never want to assume.
As simple as that may sound. So let's just read the definition. Humble. It means not proud or haughty, not arrogant or assertive. And that haughty word may sound familiar to you because there's a verse about haughtiness. And let's just go and say what haughty definition is really quick. Blatantly and disdainfully proud. Having or showing an attitude of superiority and contempt for people or things perceived to be inferior. I'm a high value man. I'm a high value woman. I ain't got to worry about this or that. I don't got to deal with this. I mean, it's just interesting how we got to be careful we're not getting too caught up in how the culture is discussing dating, because a lot of it does not come across very humble to me. Proverbs 18:12 says it like this: before destruction, a man's heart is haughty. We just talked about what that means, haughty. But humility comes before honor. A lot of people want the honor of marriage, but a lot of people are not necessarily putting in the humility needed for marriage, one, to work out in the first place. Because if you come into marriage thinking you all that in a bag of chips, you're going to be in for a rude awakening, because marriage exposes everything that you are. So there's things that I do that Pauline's like, bro, what are you? This is not going to work. And vice versa. Now, that was a little bit of a rabbit hole, because I do want to talk about, and I want you to share the 3 things that we kind of want to set the stage with when it comes to what we would do if we were single in 2025 and trying to date.
Yeah, so we want to offer you a cycle that we would go to, or present to you a cycle that we would approach, and we'll walk through with you if I was a single woman, if he was a single man, how would the cycle look different? Because obviously it does look different for men and women in general, how you approach dating as a single person in 2025. And
would you propose to a man?
What?
Would you propose
What is
to
that?
a man? That happens now.
Now? That was happening a long time. People have been doing that.
All right, I'm sorry. I got you on track.
Yeah. Yeah, you did a good job kind of setting the scene, because 2025, people are very educated. People have access to a lot of things. It's extremely common for people to have, master's degrees, multiple master's degrees, be making 6 figures, kind of on this, like, I don't need a man, I don't need a woman type of, deal. Like, I'm good all on my own, multiple streams of income. And all those things are great and awesome. And if you have that, like, I'm sure you've worked very hard and you're very proud of those things. But it can be kind of, what do they say? Was the scene, a degree doesn't keep you warm at night?
That works, even if that ain't the right way to say it.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Or your job, or a lot of things don't keep you warm at night. Because at the end of the day, you had all those things and you still want to get married. They don't replace marriage. It's just like a completely different category. But I feel like the enemy can do a good job, especially with us women, of making us feel like, okay, these things define you because you do have a certain title at your job, you do make a certain income, you have overcome these obstacles. Like, it's kind of, like your badge of honor. Like, this is me. Like, this is who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I'm not asking anything more than what I'm offering.
It's interesting because, and again, we're not talking about everybody. There's some of you out there who are doing an awesome job, and your time will come. But it does seem to be there's a large sentiment of women who maybe are more focused on finding a man who matches their salary or who just has a high salary in general. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side, there's a lot of men who are pushing off marriage because they're like, I don't want to get married until I make enough money.
Right.
And for both instances, you could argue that there's a lack of humility on both sides. So for a woman, if they only want to date a man who makes the same amount of them or who makes more, you're missing out on great men who maybe have the potential to make more one day, but you're not even giving them a chance, even though they're emotionally a better fit for you. Mentally, they may be a better fit for you. Spiritually, they're definitely a better fit in some cases, but we don't even consider them because they don't have the bank account. And then for the guy, the lack of humbleness can be one, you're forgetting that you're not the provider.
Yeah.
For your house and your family,
so
the Lord is. Yeah. Like, we are only resources. We have to remember, if we're Christians, that God is the source, that God is the one who brings increase, that God is the one who gives us the power to build wealth. All of this is in the scriptures, and it's really important to remember the importance of being humble, because a lot of men will say, yeah, I got to wait to get my money right before I bring them in. And I get the heart behind that, in the sense that a lot of people do have the right heart of like, I'm the man, I want to provide. And obviously, yes, I'm a man, I want to provide, I do provide, I get it. But the lack of humility comes in where you think you can build the wealth that you want to do without the woman God has for you to do it with. Like, I know that I would not be as far as I am in my career, in my life, without you. Like, no question. God definitely used you to help me do that. And so many men don't realize the acceleration that a woman can give them if they allow someone to do life with them and build with
together,
them.
Yeah.
And maybe the fear is that they won't find a woman who will be willing to build with them because the woman already wants somebody who makes more. It's just something to think about for yourself when you, after this podcast is over, and just asking the Lord, like, is my heart posture right? Whether you are expecting someone to bring a certain amount to the table, or whether you're expecting yourself and putting a lot of pressure on yourself to be at a certain amount. And the Lord's like, I don't need none of that. Like, I own the cattle on 1,000 hills. I can provide. That's not the problem.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider.
Yeah, it's kind of like a toxic mindset to have, because like, if you feel like the only thing holding you back from seriously dating, seriously trying to find a wife or a husband is your income, whether if your expectations of them are too high or if your expectations of yourself are too high, like, you don't want to make lifetime decisions, a decision that's going to affect the rest of your life, your children's life, your entire legacy, your children's children, your children's children's children, therefore, and on and on and on. You don't make a decision that outlasts your life based on something that is so temporary. Your income may be at a certain level today, but it may not be there tomorrow or the next year or the next year or the next year. I mean, hopefully it continues to grow.
The way companies be laying people off nowadays, you can't be sure
right,
about
but
nothing.
even if you're a business owner, not that business owners, obviously they face their own, financial struggles and challenges, and if you have multiple streams of income, and all of those things are great and wonderful, but we just live in a fallen world. We live, especially if you live in the U.S., the economy is constantly up and down. Like, your faith and your confidence cannot be in your income. Like, you don't make a decision like that based off of money, because it's so futile, it's so fleeting, it's so up and down. Kind of like the same way with your health. Like, God forbid something were to happen to you or somebody that you love, and they're having some type of health crisis, and they had like this amazing drug that was going to help your loved one get better. Like, would you say, it's too expensive, I'm not going to get it? If it's going to help them and help them live longer, you just say, we'll figure out the money later. Like, get this drug, put us on a monthly payment plan. Like, I'll work another job. Like, we'll figure it out, because it's much bigger than money. And how much more someone you're going to link your life with, someone that you're going to build with, you're going to have children with, you're going to raise your children with. Like, it has to be that serious. And I think so much we look, I know you talked about this when you took family science courses in college, how's the society in the U.S. lately, like the past, maybe half a century or so, we look so much at marriage as this capstone of like, it's like a crown you put on your head after you've like achieved everything in life. And well, now I'm going to get married. It's like, well, and that's why a lot of people don't get married until they're 32, 33, 34, beyond, because they're more established in their careers. They maybe are owning a home and they're just more established as an adult versus, 20, 30, 40 years ago, people were getting married right out of college when they're basically have nothing. But they also have the support of their parents in a different way, all those different things. So just think about that. Like, what is your mindset towards marriage? Is it a kingdom mindset? Is it something where it's like, all right, this is my partner that I'm building God's kingdom with. You're not going to put God's kingdom on hold until you reach a certain income level. So a lot of times the Lord is, we're praying for a spouse and God's like, you're not really ready. Like you're asking with the wrong heart. And I think it's James talks about that you don't get what you ask for because you ask for it with the wrong heart. So just be kind of mindful of that if money is a big hang up for you, because vows are real. It says, for rich or for poor, because there will be times of richness, there will be times of poorness. Obviously, that's very...
I don't see that, Pauline.
That's fine. That's that varies for different people. For some people, poor means $100,000 in the bank. For others,
did you know that joke? Charles Barkley talking about Shaq. He was like, if Shaq woke up with my bank account, he would be depressed. I think he said something a little harsh than that. Something way more harsh than that. But I ain't gonna say it. But the whole point is, Charles Barkley is rich. Like, if I woke up with Charles Barkley, I'd be like, hey, let's go.
Yes.
So perspective is everything when it comes to money. But that is not what we wanted to talk about.
We really got a tangent here.
Yeah, hopefully that was Holy Spirit led.
Amen.
Let's get practical. What are the three things? Let's just say them and then let's
go. The first cycle that we would run through, if we were to look for a spouse in 2025, is to let people give you options, number one. Number two, be open. And number three is to rinse and repeat. So the first one, let people give you options. I love this because it takes the pressure off of me. So if I'm a single woman in 2025, I'm 31 years old.
Yeah, what you gonna do? I want to know.
Oh, gosh. If I am a single woman in 2025, I'm 31 years old, I am going to not trust myself. That's the humility part of it. And I'm going to look at what all of my options are. But because I know I'm only one person and I'm only, if I saw my husband at this point or somebody who I would want to be my husband.
Yeah, I was about to say,
if I was in contact with somebody.
You're not one of them, are you?
Oh, Lord. What are you saying?
God told me you my husband. That's what it sounded like.
Okay, whatever. If I had already seen somebody who I thought would be a good husband option for me at this point in my life, at 31, almost 32 years old, I wouldn't need this. I wouldn't go about this way. But even if that was the case, if I saw someone like, oh, he'd be a good option for me, clearly I'm single, right? So either something's going wrong. Like, I see him, but he doesn't see me, that type of situation. Either way, I need help. If I am in a state, and in this, hypothetical situation, I'm single. I'm in a state that I don't want to be in. I need help. I need somebody to help me. I need God's help, and I need God's people to help me. So because of how I am and how I was when I was single, the first people that I would look to help me would be the people that I go to church with, because I'm very involved in church. I trust people at church. I know that I love God's house and his church, and I want to marry somebody who also loves God's house and his church. Now, does that mean that the person I marry has to go to my church? No, not necessarily. But I want it to be kind of like a common factor, common denominator amongst us. So that's where I would start. Because, obviously not everybody in the church is a good option. But I have a higher chance of finding somebody that meets what I'm looking for in the church than I do outside of the church.
So what would you say to somebody who's like, I've done that, or the people that they're suggesting are not good, or I don't even have somebody to ask? Because, we love to actually help people. And there's people who've heard this before.
So I'm going to get into that.
All right,
so a lot of what that whole number one option of like let people give you options, that is very dependent on my relationship with people at church, right? So if I go to church and I'm in and out, or I serve a little bit, but nobody really knows me and I don't really know them, this option is not going to hold a lot of weight for me. So before this can really be very helpful for me, I have to make sure that my relationships at church are strong, that I am opening up to people, that I'm talking to people about where I am in life, that I'm letting people into my life, that I'm being involved in their life as much as I can, or as much as makes sense and is natural or whatever, and that I'm being consistent at church, that I'm consistent with serving, that I'm making friends, that I'm connecting with people, that I'm growing my options. Now this isn't a manipulative, like I'm only here and I'm only serving and I'm only making friends at church so that I can find a husband. No, that naturally, connecting and meeting people, a byproduct of that is that my circle is going to grow, and I'm going to be introduced to more people. Hopefully, as I make friends with other women that are like-minded, maybe we have the same career, we have similar hobbies and interests. I know maybe somebody has a brother, has a cousin, has something. I'm getting invited to cookouts, for Memorial Day, and I'm being exposed to more people that are connected and expanding my circle. Now I know that sounds very, very simple, and it doesn't mean like, oh, I'm going to do this in 6 months, I'm meeting my husband. No, that's not, what the case is. This is a practice of essentially who I am, and making sure that this is who I am. So if I do meet somebody in a couple months and he's cute, but he's not as saved as I thought he was, so it's not going to work out, I'm going back to my options. I have a system of constantly meeting new people, of my circle constantly growing and expanding. And this applies to me in my real life now as a married wife and mother, of like constantly meeting new people. Now I'm not looking for a husband, obviously, but I am always looking for new mom friends or new wife friends, or people who are like-minded, who have similar hobbies, who have similar interests, who love the Lord, who are trying to grow in the Lord, things like that. So this isn't, this is who I am. It's not a matter of I'm only doing this till I get a husband, then I get my husband, bye. Like, I'm not talking to anybody else anymore. I got what I want and I'm out of here. So that's what it means. In the Bible, we see people like Abraham sent out his servant to find a wife for Isaac, to find Rebecca. And I love that story and that example of like using your community to help you find a spouse. Because when you're doing that, you're not relying only on your own eyes and your own kind of judgment, and knowing like, okay, I am very limited. Some people say my picker is broken, given your past, like, hey, I've picked the last 3, 4, 5 and it hasn't worked out, so I need somebody else to pick for me. And I think a lot of this too, when it's like letting people, give you options, it's who those people are. So yes, people at church, but depending on where you go to church and what type of church you go to, like, you may not really value the quality of those people's, like, what they value. So a lot of it has to be to like a married couple that you admire, that you look up to, that you respect, because if they picked well for themselves, or went through their own process of picking well and getting married, like, they obviously can give you some insight. And also asking them straight up and directly, like, hey, do you know any guys that would be a good fit for me? Now, obviously, this, again, depends on how well they know me, how well I've let them know me, and what I've communicated to them and what I'm looking for, and kind of refining that. But even before I got there, we've already had an established relationship. I'm already talking to, older wives or women that are older than me. Hey, how did you meet your husband? You guys seem to be really, like, have a great friendship. Your kids seem to be so loving. You have a great family. I would love to learn more. Like, just asking them questions. How can you better serve them? Things like that. If they invite you over for dinner, like, that's a plus. You really get to see their family, and just asking more questions about how did you and your husband first meet? What was that like when you were dating? And kind of get insight. What was your mindset like? And then you'll hear, oh girl, I never thought he and I would be together, and then this happened and that happened, and just hearing more stories and getting more vision, and being around people essentially that I want to be like, and hearing what their process was like, and allowing the Lord to change my mind. Because again, if I am somebody who's like 1 foot in the streets, which like I wasn't really when I was single, but who knows what I'd be like in this hypothetical 2025 version of Pauline, watching YouTube, being on social media, those things are going to influence how I view the dating pool and how I view what my options are. So I might see a guy who's like, yeah, he loves God and he's cool, but he don't dress good enough for me, and like I'm turned off, and like I don't know how saved he is, and it's like, but have you ever talked to him? Like you don't really know. But if I saw a video that made me think like, okay, he's not a good option, he reminds me of this guy in a video, that those things affect you. So sometimes I would have to renew my mind from what's going on in the world, have certain boundaries, not watch certain things, but also being open and being corrected from friends that I have that are married, that have marriages that I admire, and allowing them to point me in the right direction of like, oh, okay, like this type of guy would look nice. And like we're talking about practical stuff, right? This is more of like how you and I got together, of listening to somebody who is a little bit further ahead of me, and like, okay, well, what guys at church do you think are good options? Like, who do you think is being overlooked? Who do you think, girls are kind of too hard on, and hearing what they have to say about that. And if they ever drops a name to me and say like, oh, you should look at Tim, Tim is a really cool guy. He loves God. He's so respectful. He works hard. And it's like, this is my real life reaction of like, oh, like, yeah, I don't know. And I was told, pray about it. And I did that. And then also making myself more available to the Lord, and saying like, okay, God, if you want this, then you show me, being around you more, talking to you more. Like,
so let's pause. So you're saying you got a suggestion from somebody and you were not sold, but you intentionally chose to learn more about me?
Yes.
Why? Why did you do that? Just because someone said it?
Well, it's not just because someone. It was someone that I trusted and I respected, and I felt knew me, to a degree. And
did you feel weird trying to like intentionally get to know me at that point?
I mean, I wouldn't say I was intentionally getting to know you. I was being open to the Lord.
So let's explain this, because
that's the second point, is be open. That we have.
But so you said you weren't intentionally getting to know me, but you just said you were starting to be around me more. So I'm trying to, for someone.
But I wasn't intentionally, because I feel like when you say intentionally get to know someone, it's like, oh, we're going out on one-on-one dates. I'm asking you questions.
Right, so make it plain. Explain what you mean.
I was being around you more. So like, and paying attention. So a lot of times I would dismiss guys like, oh, that's just so-and-so. That's just whatever. You felt, oh, that's just Tim, like, little bro, like, whatever. And, dismissing you, like, yeah, you're not an option for me. Like, yeah, he's a nice guy for somebody else, but, like, that's, And I had to kind of get out of that and think more of, like, okay, like, I don't really see it right now, but, like, what, like, God, are you sure? Like, kind of just trying to keep my eyes open, like, on you, and, like, seeing how the Lord would respond.
So, for someone listening, maybe they've gotten a suggestion before, which I'm sure some of you have definitely have, and you've automatically ruled the person out. You're saying that the next time they're around that guy, just actually listening to what they have to say is what they should do? Is that...
Listening to what the guy has to say?
Yeah.
I don't know, because that the way that you just asked it, it made it sound like, oh, you were already interested in me, and you were trying to, like, give your pitch for, like, us going on a date, and that's not what happened.
No, I guess, because I know the story, and I feel like you could be... I feel like
what am I leaving out? Say it.
So when you say you were putting yourself around me, like, were you intentionally walking up to me, or was it, hey, I noticed Tim, like, I'm already in a circle of people talking and Tim is there. I'm listening to what he's saying with a new perspective.
It was more the second one. So, for example, this is when Snapchat, I mean, I don't know if Snapchat's still big or not. It's not in my world, but this is when I was on Snapchat more. And, like, we were already friends on Snapchat and Instagram. This is way before Instagram stories. But you, like, posted something of, like, you and your brother at church or something like that on Snapchat. And I, like, normally I would look at your Snapchat. Do they call it stories? Snaps? Whatever. I would look at your Snapchats that you posted, just like I looked at a lot of the people that I, was, like, I knew. But after this conversation and after praying, I took it upon myself to respond to your Snapchat. So, like, that was a small thing that, like, either that you could probably, if you wanted to, dismiss, like, oh, it's just Pauline, just, like, because I made, like, a joke about, like, something you were wearing or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was very chill. It wasn't, like, even out of the realm of,
I wouldn't look at it and automatically be like, oh, she want me.
Right, exactly. It was just a very, like, small, I want to say bait, but like a small test. And, you know, see how things go. Like, okay. And I would do that. Like, okay, well, I'll, you know, kind of put my toe out there. And is he going to put his toe out there? Is he going to take it to the next level? Is he going to Snapchat me back first tomorrow, you know, or the next time there's an opportunity, things like that. Like, I'm not going to be like doing this all the time. It's a test. And also that was my thing with like making sure that this was God's timing, because how many times do you like somebody and they're with somebody else, so they're not an option? And I felt like, okay, if I put my toe out there and you don't notice and you don't take it upon yourself to build on it, then that was my sign that like, yeah, this is not, you know, we're missing each other, and that's okay. But that was like my safe way of trying to, okay, be interested or be curious. Curious is better than interested, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so from a guy's perspective, I think obviously you could definitely go to people and say, hey, is there a woman you think I should consider? Preferably going to a guy, because I feel like if you go to a woman, they'll give you a list of 50 people depending on who it is.
Yeah.
And that may not be helpful. But maybe a guy who knows you can give you more pointed, like, all right, this person may be a good fit, this person. And then also you could submit, if you have people that you're interested in, you could submit it to the person, like, what do you think about this? And they could say, go for it. Or they could say, I don't know. And just being more open, more humble about somebody's feedback and being like, all right, well, maybe I should consider it. Now, the be open part for a man, I think it comes in a similar play if because they happened to me. Pauline was suggested to me, and I had a similar reaction to her, like, no, I wasn't really interested. But similar to you, I was praying about it, and I was like, Lord, if this will show me. And just the same way, I was intentionally, all right, let me talk to her more, because I don't necessarily just be talking to people like that. But I was like, all right, let me go out of my way to intentionally have conversations with her. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand as well, is conversations are powerful.
Yeah.
And that's why you should be careful who you're talking to and who you're texting all day and all night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it can lead to emotions that, if they are not mutual from the other side, you could really hurt yourself. But I started having conversations with Pauline, and this was not, the conversations didn't lead us to go over the hump and be like, yeah, this is the person I want to date and then eventually marry. But it did start highlighting some things like, oh, this person is more interesting than I thought, or this person has different layers to them than I thought. And that can lead to more, all right, God, like...
Yeah, it's a slow build. Not slow, but it's a build,
yeah,
for sure.
No, it is slow, though. And I think that is important to highlight. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't have to be this instantaneous, I'm super attracted to them, I think they're amazing. Like we've said it before, I think people be surprised how many people instantly weren't super attracted to their now spouse, mm-hmm. who now they think is extremely handsome or extremely beautiful, whatever it may be. Like, there's people coming to my mind right now that I know are married who have told me, yeah, my spouse was not, you know, the person that I was super interested in at first, mm-hmm. and vice versa. And that's okay. Like, I think we get so caught up in like, oh, I need to think they're amazing from day one.
But I think a lot of that is media, and that's thinking like love at first sight, or like just instant sexual attraction is like the only type of attraction, or the only type of, yeah, I guess, attraction. Like, there's other ways to be attracted to people, like, because we all know you've probably met somebody who you're like, oh, they're very good looking, and then they open their mouth and you're like, oh, like, please stay over there. Like, I do not want to hear you talk. Not even because of the sound of their voice, but because of the things that they're saying, and you're like, oh, you're actually like mean, or, you know, not kind, not smart, things like that. And then other people, you are like, oh, they're not like the most, you know, easiest on the eyes, but they're so kind, they're so funny, they make me feel so good about myself when I'm around them. And then that's another, you know, there's different levels and categories of attraction. And that's also, you know, the Bible says beauty is fleeting, and just because you're highly attracted to somebody and you get married doesn't mean your marriage is going to last. Yeah,
and please, we're not saying date somebody ugly. We're not saying show interest in somebody who you think is ugly. But we are saying if there's even a hint of I could be attracted to them, let this be the year where you are humble and open and allow yourself to at least get to know them more. Because sometimes whatever the issue you think you have with the person could change. It could go away as you get to know them more. Maybe it actually becomes more attractive to you. You never know. And Albert Einstein, you all probably heard the quote before. He said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Mm-hmm. So if you're somebody who's frustrated with where you are right now as far as your love life, why don't you try something different? If you've never tried to just get to know people who were like 70% of what you were looking for, just a physical attraction. Yeah. If you never tried it, why not this year try it? Like, what do you have to lose?
Right. Because there's a big difference between you praying and asking God for, asking God to send you a spouse that meets your list of the things that you want. And there's a difference between that and God sending you and you being ready for the spouse that you need. A lot of times we know what we want, but we don't know what we need. And only the Lord really knows that. And as we get closer and closer to Him, as we change, as we grow, as we become more like Him, our needs can become revealed. And you realize like, oh wow, like 6 months ago, I wouldn't have dated somebody like this or like that. But I realize now, like, that's the type of person I need. Like, I thought I wanted somebody exactly like me. That was my story when I was in college. I thought I wanted somebody who was exactly like me, but a dude. And God quickly, not quickly, but over time, showed me like that's not helpful. Like, you don't need two of you. So if that's, that may help you. That may help you kind of think differently about what's on your list. Like, why do both of you guys need to be CEOs? Like, that's kind of, who's going to be at home, who's going to be raising the kids, who's going to be, cheering each other on. Like, and that was something I had to learn, even early on in our marriage, is like, we're partners, but we're on a team. Like, you don't need two point guards out there at the same time, when you're on the court. Everybody has a different role, different function.
Was there something else that you wanted to say?
In regards to what?
Like, did you have other points?
Well, just a rinse and repeat thing. But that goes back to what we were saying about, like, don't think of this as a formula of how to get married in 2025. Think of this as a rhythm to follow for your whole life and building relationships in general. So as you're using the people that you have already to meet other people, it's kind of like networking, in a corporate sense, but not for like, selfish gain. It's for you to grow and for you to just grow as a person. And then as you are asking for feedback and those things, you're gonna you keep doing it over and over again. Like, once you get the job that you want, if you're networking, you're not done networking. Now you got your new job. Now you meet your coworkers. Now you meet different departments, people that you work with. You should always just be in like growing and expanding your network and your connection with people.
Yeah, I love that. So let 2025 be the year of the opposite in your dating life. If you typically are somebody who is slow to date, slow to consider options, let 2025 be the year where you are more open to going on dates, where you're more open to getting to know people that you're suggested that you're like, I'm not really vibing it. Let it be the year where you push past that and just say, hey, you know what? I will choose to have an extra conversation with this person. I will choose to respond to their story. I will choose to comment on their Instagram post. I will choose to get to know them more intentionally or to just go out to coffee with them.
Yeah.
Vice versa. If you're somebody who every month you're going on a date, every 5 seconds you got somebody new in your phone, let this be the year you slow down.
Right.
Let's pray a little bit more.
Yeah.
Lord, should I go on this date? Yeah. Let's involve community a little bit more. Hey, y'all, I think this man is fine, but do y'all think he's somebody that I need to be spending time with?
Yeah. Right now.
Slow down. Slow down, slow down, slow down. 2025, the year of the opposite in your dating life. I really do think that could help a lot of people. If you're too slow, go a little faster. If you're too fast, slow down.
Slow down.
And maybe, just maybe, in 2026, your love life is in a place you never thought it could be. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this video.
To get more Christian relationship advice, subscribe to our channel.
And make sure you check out our other videos as well.